Welcome back to the Off the Ball podcast. I'm your host, Clay Tillman, and on today's episode, we are going to be breaking down the Packers versus Seahawks game from last night. So it's a bit different. Obviously, I'm in a new setting, as you can tell. I'm back home for winter break, so I will be here for a while. And I usually go through a preview of Monday night, but since tonight there's two games, what I'm going to do is just break down this game, and then Wednesday I'll go over the two games from tonight. But as of right now, as of this podcast, I'm just going to be breaking down the Packers versus Seahawks game from last night. So Packers win 30-13 in I would say a first half brawl. No, I would say a second half brawl, because I feel like the Seahawks did a lot better in the second half and the Packers did a lot better in the first half. There was chances where there was times where Seahawks had a chance to come back, to make touchdowns, and they couldn't. One, injuries. Geno Smith got hurt. And two, the Packers were already so much ahead, even though their run game in the second half was absent. They had a lot of 3-and-outs in the second half. They were already so much ahead where it was really hard for the Seahawks team to thrive in any sort of way in both halves. And the Packers really showed their dominance in this game. I want to break down the Packers box score, so let's do that right now. I think Jordan Love had a really good game. It's been 4 games since Jordan Love has not thrown an interception. Before that, he threw an interception in every single game. But for the past 2 games, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns and 0 picks. He's done a very good job, and I feel like this is what we saw from him last year. Last year, Jordan Love had a terrible October. We saw the Packers doing a very poor job on the offensive side last season, and it was really hard to say if this Packers team really had full trust in Jordan Love. Well, coming November and December, they were on a roll, and I feel like that's what we've seen from the Packers this season. Jordan Love was hurt at the beginning of the season. There was a lot of say if we'll be a playoff team or the Packers will be a playoff team. And as of right now, yes, this Packers team looks legitimate. I'm not even just saying that this Packers team looks like a playoff team. This is a true Super Bowl contending team, and I'll get to that in a second. But Jordan Love was 20 for 27. He had 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. In the first half, he was 17 for 18. He did a very, very good job. Josh Jacobs did very well. He had 26 carries on 94 yards on 1 touchdown. He's been a very consistent running back for this Packers team this whole season. After getting rid of Aaron Jones the past offseason and acquiring Josh Jacobs from the Raiders, and what the Packers or what fans have seen from Josh Jacobs, he led the league in rushing. He was a multi-Pro Bowl running back. He had a couple All-Pro. He made a couple All-Pro teams. There was a lot of questions, but I feel like Josh Jacobs has definitely proven himself to be a potential future running back for the Packers and potentially sign a big contract for them. He's 3rd in rushing right now, and he's done a very consistent job, like I said, for this Packers team on the run game. And then also Romeo Doubs, his first game back from a concussion, he did very well, had 2 touchdowns, and before he had his concussion, I believe against Arizona, he also had 2 touchdowns in that game. So he came back in this game after his concussion with 3 receptions, 40 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the night. His chemistry with Jordan Love is it's chained together. They are linked together mentally, and especially with every wide receiver I saw from last night and just the whole season in general. Jordan Love has found a lot of chemistry with all three receivers. I mean, Christian Watson, who is a downfield vertical threat on the Packers team. He may not be the best wide receiver on their team, but he is very, very valuable when it comes to deep threat, vertical plays. And he's made a lot of remarkable catches when it comes to those situations and scenarios. Same with Jaden Reed. He's been very consistent. He could be a potential Pro Bowler this season. We'll have to see about that. But Romeo Doubs has been their guy. Before his injury, he was considered wide receiver 1. And in this game, he continues to prove his injury didn't affect him that much, despite the fact he missed a lot of games. But he comes back and he keeps on doing what he's doing, helping this offense score 30-plus points, helping Jordan Love, helping this offense, man. It's cool to see because, one, this Packers team, there's a lot. When they drafted Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback, a lot of hopes were pretty negative. Will Jordan Love be great? Will he be the next Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre type of quarterback? Now, that's hard to compete with because you're competing against two Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. So can Jordan Love take that place? And he's done that at a very, very good level. He's a little bit interception prone, but the last 4 games, he's been very, very good, and this is what we saw from him last year. He's looking like a top 10 quarterback. He's helping his team potentially make a playoff bound if they win next week against the Saints. So he's done a very, very good job at his position through November and then now in December. So after this win against the Seahawks, Packers could win out. We could see this happen. There's 4 games left in the season, and they have 1 more away game, and that's against the Vikings. Vikings, one of the most surprising teams this season after J.J. McCarthy gets hurt and Sam Darnold comes in. Well, Sam Darnold has performed at a Pro Bowl level. You have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison who have had a great season. Your run game has been good with Aaron Jones. They are a great offense, and they've proved it this whole season. They've proved it. Packers have already lost to Minnesota this season in their home field. So Packers are going to Minnesota in this next upcoming game. It's not the next game. It's 2 weeks from now. But in 2 weeks, they'll have 1 more away game. So that is their toughest opponent for the remainder of the season. They play the Saints next week, who are 5-9, and that's in their home field. And they play the Bears, who are 4-9, who have just been eliminated from the playoffs. And as anybody knows, as any fan in the NFL, as any Packers fan especially, the Packers are huge rivals against the Bears, and the Packers technically own this Bears team because the Bears have not found a way to win in 11 straight games against this Green Bay Packers team. So Packers could potentially win out. And if they do, when they head to the playoffs, they will be on a 4-game winning streak, and that momentum will carry. When we get to the postseason, the records are 0-0. Now, there's some teams who have advantages. Like, as of right now, Lions and Chiefs will be the number 1 seed. They'll have home field advantage for all games, and they have a bye. So they have the best advantage to get to the Super Bowl. Well, last year, this Packers team went 9-8, beat Dallas in the wild card round, almost beat the 49ers. If they did, they would have faced the Lions in the NFC Championship. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this Packers team make a run for it in the playoffs. If they get to the wild card spot, which they should if they win next week, they will probably face a team, as of right now, the Rams or the Seahawks. one of those teams. I mean, you have the 49ers, you have the Cardinals, but those teams are unlikely to make the playoffs. I feel like the two teams in that division are more likely to be the Rams and the Seahawks. Well, the Packers are very familiar with these two teams, and they can beat them. They really can. I know the Rams team are one of the hottest teams in the league right now, so it could be a little bit tougher. But hypothetically, if this Packers team do play the Seahawks, I think the Packers will win that game. But if they don't and they play the Rams, I think the Packers are a better team than the Rams. I think they can still beat them. The Packers could go to the divisional round. I don't know who they'd play, but this Packers team is a very gritty team, and they want to win. They have a winning mentality. So when it comes to playoff games, this Packers team know how to play. They know how to play under pressure. They have a great head coach in Matt LaFleur, who's a great play designer. He's been their head coach for the last 6 years and have made the playoffs in his last 5. They are a great playoff mentality team, and I wouldn't be surprised if this team goes to the NFC Championship. And if they do, they'd probably play the Lions. And as we've seen this year, there have been some close games with the Lions. The first game, Packers lost by 10. In the second game, it was back-to-back, scoring-wise, and Packers lose by 3. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. Don't be surprised if this team potentially makes a Super Bowl. It's a long shot, but this team has the mentality, has the physicality. They are legitimate, and if they don't get in this year, watch out, because this team is on the uprising. They truly are. They truly are. Throughout the game against the Seahawks, especially in the first half, Packers in their first 2 possessions go up 14-0. They had a strong running game with Josh Jacobs, who did very well. Like I said, they scored on their first 2 possessions. In both those possessions, they had a total of 18 plays, and Josh Jacobs carried on 11 of those. In the opening drive, they had a total of 10 plays, and Josh Jacobs carried on 9 of those. So they were really looking at the run-heavy offense in the first half. It worked. It really did. In the second half, the defense stopped them, and that's when Jordan Love had to go through the air a little bit more. And it helped. They had a few 3-and-outs at the start. Seahawks score, cut it within 10. But then Jordan Love throws this incredible pass to Romeo Doubs. That was, I can't believe Romeo Doubs even caught it. It was incredible. It was an incredible pass. This Packers team is young. They're hungry. The Packers haven't made a Super Bowl in almost 16 years. They are hungry for a Super Bowl. And like I said multiple times, they will do whatever it takes to get into the big dance. Also, one thing I want to note about the Packers is their defense. Carrington Valentine had a good interception in the end zone last night. It's his first interception in 28 games. He did a very good job on that end. And then Edgerrin Cooper had an interception towards the end of the game. Sam Howell threw it right to his hands, which basically ended the game. Also, 12 QB hits Packers had. They had 12 QB hits against the Seahawks and 7 sacks. So they did a very good job when it comes to pass rush and QB pressure. And as of last night, they were on the bottom half towards the very bottom of pass rushing and pressure rate. So they did a very good job when it comes to the pressuring the QB, especially taking advantage since Sam Howell came in and Geno Smith got hurt. They did a very good job and took advantage of that. Also, their offensive line did very, very well, allowing Josh Jacobs to have open spaces to get chunk plays. They did a very, very well. Zach Tom leading that offensive line, and he did a very, very good job of blocking overall. So as I said, Packers play Saints, a 5-9 team, in Lambeau Field Sunday night. And if they win, Packers go to the Super Bowl. I mean, not the Super Bowl, the playoffs for the second year in a row. So we'll see what happens. But this Packers team, watch out. They are a good and hungry team. Let's move on to the Seahawks. So Geno Smith gets hurt. He was 15 for 19, 149 yards, and 1 INT. And they didn't do much elsewhere. I mean, their leading receiver was Jackson Smith-Njigba with 10 receptions and 83 yards. And then Zach Charbonnet had 8 carries, 54 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then Sam Howell comes in, and we really saw a struggling game from him. And they are really hoping that Geno does come back, because as of right now, they're not in the playoffs. They got bumped out after losing. Rams take the division as of right now, and they're not in the wild card. They don't have a wild card spot right now, because in the wild card spots in the NFC, you have the Packers, you have the Vikings, and you have the Washington Commanders. So overall, this Washington Commanders team is a game ahead, and they have two more division or conference wins than the Seahawks do. So for tying purposes, this Washington team, if a scenario happens where the Seahawks and Washington have a tie record, Washington still takes that spot because of their conference wins, and Seahawks has less wins in the conference than Washington. So we'll see how that plays out for the remainder of the season. But like I said, playoff hopes are on thin ice right now. You're in a tough division that's very, very close. This was a must-win for the Seahawks. And Geno Smith getting hurt was terrible. It was not good for the Seahawks at all. They struggled pretty definitely in that second half when Geno Smith got hurt. And it just didn't look good. QB-wise, it didn't look good, but also offensive line-wise. The offensive line struggled heavily. I said this a little bit ago, but they allowed 7 sacks and 12 QB hits on the night. A big reason for that is they lost their center as well, who's had a career season, Alu Watimi, in the first half due to a knee injury. And like I said, he's had a career season. He's allowed 0 sacks and only 2 QB hits on the season. And I said this earlier, the Seahawks offensive team is playing a Packers team who's on the bottom of pressure rate when it comes to the whole NFL. As a team, they're on the bottom of pressure rate and pass rush. And the Packers had 12 sacks on 12 QB hits. So this offensive line struggled heavily. QB-wise, just Geno Smith being hurt has not been well, or did not end up well for them. And especially Geno Smith on the year, he's just had a struggling year. 2 years ago, he was a potential MVP candidate. Last year, made a Pro Bowl. This season, he's forced the most. He threw his 4th pick in the red zone this game, which is most in the NFL, and he also threw his 4th interception in the end zone, which is tied for the most this year. So he struggled when it comes to a touchdown to interception ratio, which is 13 interceptions to 14 touchdowns. So he's been very inconsistent. It's been a 1 touchdown to 1 interception. I mean, it's been consistent, but it's been a negative consistency. 1 interception or 1 touchdown to 1 interception each game. So he struggled a lot this season, which is a reason the Seahawks team has kind of been a little flaky. Even though they're number one in their division, their conference or their division, the NFC West, hasn't been great. They haven't. Cardinals are pretty mediocre. The 49ers have been very, very bad. Rams, they're on the uprising. They're being very consistent. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL. But this Seahawks team, after this loss, well, they're not even in the playoffs anymore. That's how bad they are, or mediocre they are, even though they're number one in their division, or were number one in their division. Now they're not. So they play the Vikings on Sunday. That will be another tough game. Vikings on a roll this season. The Vikings also do play tonight, so we'll see how that happens. But the Vikings have only lost 2 games this season. And Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison have been the powerhouse of that Vikings offense, have been the nucleus of that offense this season. So a lot of struggling, a lot of questions are up in the air for the Seahawks team. But hey, there is a lot more games left. We have 3 more games. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. We'll have to see. We really will have to see. But I hope y'all enjoy. If y'all did, make sure to continue to share this podcast. Follow me on all socials. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All you have to do is look up Off the Ball with Clay Tillman, and you'll find me there. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time on the Off the Ball podcast. Have a good day.